showtime.
Good morning, Vietnam! Welcome to the party, pal!
See you at the party, Richter!
I didn't kill my wife! I don't care!
Get away from her, you bitch!
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
You did not going to say that, did you?
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
The dude abides.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
Inconceivable!
Little Dallas multipass.
This is a tasty burger.
Please.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
I'm the bad guy?
And Hulk, smash.
I can speak with an English accent.
Hit the hash pipe and join the National Guard. I could be elected president.
You went over my helmet?
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
I know, right?
The list is in the open!
Hey, where are the white women at?
They're digging in the wrong place.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Are you not entertained?
Second start of the ride. And straight on till morning.
Meow.
You son of a bitch.
21 gigawatts!
Wax on, wax off.
Oh my goodness, I am sporting a tremendous Woody right now.
Bartender is the aristocrat of the working class.
You want to flip 6 3-hole play and you could score.
Cover me.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. On this team, we fight for that itch.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
No ticket.
No ticket.
I get older, they stay the same age.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude. He's 15.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies.
Good evening. Oh, wait a minute. Hold. There we go. Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Reel McCoy. I'm your host, Meffistoe, and usually with me, my hetero life mate, Oh My Feelings. But today, it's so crazy how life goes sometimes. Today, Mr. Oh My Feelings is away. He is away on business. I send him away for business to talk on my behalf to maybe get some more funding on the show. No, I'm just kidding. My good friend, All My Feelings, is away on some sort of a trip or business trip. Not for funsies. But apparently his boss doesn't realize that he fucks up my shit. But it is what it is. Plus, I kind of got my dates wrong and I couldn't book a guest for this week. But I'm still here and I still want to do the show with you because I had a great time watching today's film. And let's get back into form, shall we? What is the Reel McCoy, you might ask? The Reel McCoy is your weekly movie podcast where we ask you to go watch a movie, you watch it, come back to us, and we break it down for you. This month of spooky October month, we decided that we are going to concentrate on a few body horror films. So we said, well, what's the first body horror film that or director that we can sort of model the entire month of? And of course, both of us said David Cronenberg. Now, as you may well know, if you've watched the show before, not even on October, I am not a horror guy. But so to kind of ease the fact that I'm not really into horror or body horror, and essentially we kind of picked and choose a few different movies that were sort of not really horror, but sort of a middle of the road, but very much on the body horror type. If you watched us last week, we covered The Substance, obviously, went into the extreme, but we're kind of falling backwards into time where we said, let's do a Cronenberg film, which we're going to do two. One of them is today, and it is The Fly, the remake of The Fly. And probably when you say The Fly, you would probably mean this one and not sort of denigrated the fact that it is a remake. But if you've seen the original, it was not really sort of like that A-class type of movie. It was more like a B-class. It's a Vincent Price movie, 1958. It's more of a, one of those movies where if you've seen a movie in the 80s that had like a drive-in and had a movie on, that would be one of those movies. It is The Fly. It had a couple of remakes as well. I think it's the Son of the Fly and the Ending of the Fly, something like that. But it's sort of very interesting how the updated version is the one that is most accepted as the definitive version. All right, before we got it, I kind of got into it, but before we kind of dive into the actual production stuff, let's say hello to the chat. Let's say hello to Snorterpurpus Cubear, James Mendonca. Sorry for screwing up your name many, many times before, but English is my second language, but I do what I can. Kaladin Kalikioki, Sander Hammerschlag, hello, sir. Griffin as well, sitting down and just, watching us as he works probably, but hello. I know you can't chat, and yes, I am Jeff Goldblum. Well, not me. I mean, James wants to say it over and over and over again. And I think after this performance of Jeff Goldblum, I think he is allowed to. Just, I don't care about that you say it many, many times. Just be careful that like the YouTube bot does shut you down for spamming. That is not me. To me, you're allowed to say that every so often, and that's fine. Just careful from the almighty YouTube bot. Like Slurpee, and we'll start. By the way, guys, any suggestions and all that stuff that you want to, contribute to the show, for this show, for any other show, please feel free to if you've got like an X account or Twitter account, whatever you want to call it, just DM me there or leave a comment, which is fine. I like, this is still a small channel, but I do try to read all the comments and answer them. There were very lovely comments after last week's show. I have not deleted a single one. I let people say what they will, as long as it just doesn't cross that boundary. And I do hope everybody enjoyed that show. I know Nick is a very controversial guy. I couldn't quite get into it last week because what I try to do on this channel, and this is for every single time I go live, which is basically this show nowadays. I leave everything out this door. Behind this door, there's a lot of real life that people are not aware of and have no concept of what is going on. That means all the politics, all the crap that is going on in real life. And I try to concentrate on what is in front of us and essentially what is in the back of me, which is just the appreciation and love of movies, whether they're bad or good. And I hope I give you just a little bit of relief, whether it's for 2 hours, an hour and a half. I don't know how much we're going to go live today, but we'll try to cover as much of the movie as possible and just talk about it. And of course, if I do make a mistake, and I will make a mistake, you can just hammer me with it, because sometimes my head goes in a direction and I say like outlandish shit that had nothing to do with the movie and or are completely wrong. So I will accept full responsibility because I do. All right. We're going to start the proper show like we do every single week with a little segment we like to call Behind the Screens.
Sound production, take 2.
Behind the Screens is where we turn to me, little old me, and get the lowdown on everything that is behind the scenes, production-wise, all that good stuff. Let us do it. Okay. So there was a producer called Keep Omen. And he was very interested on remaking this movie. He actually did love Vincent Price's work, and especially he did like The Fly, amongst other things. And he turned to Charles Edward Pogue to write the script, and he got 20th Century Fox on board. I think they own the original copyright for both the film and the short story. I think it was the short story is like from a guy called William Bernard. Don't quote me on it. And you guys can Google it. I think it's William Bernard. I didn't put it in my notes, but I should have. And Pogue actually teamed up with a different producer called Stu Kornfeld or Stuart Kornfeld, and they both started to work on the script kind of together, with Stu giving Pogue a little bit of, do this, don't do this. And they were the first ones that came up with the idea of, we don't want to do a hard transition. So in the original film, there was a hard transition of the guy. And they said, we don't want to have a full on, teleport into a half man, half fly. So we'll have a gradual change. And that was sort of an outline to what they were trying to tell the story. And it's one of those outlines that actually did make it for the final cut. Let's see. Doba Fett. Welcome, Doba Fett. I haven't seen you in a while, dude. The first time I saw footage of the 1958 film was in a Lucas film, which came out in the same year as the remake. Which Lucas film was it? Oh, the film Lucas. Oh, that's right. Where the Corey Haim played like a tiny little football guy. Yeah, I remember that movie. That movie sucks a little bit. It sucks at the beginning. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, cool. Next. So, Pogue actually wrote a full first draft, and him and Kornfeld went back to the studio, and they were like, "Here you go. There's our script." And of course, the studio hated it. They completely hated it. They thought it was corny and boring because at the time, there was no body horror attachments. There was no craziness, just a straight up story. Plus, the original character of Brundle, who didn't have a name at the time, the studio found him to be aggressive and not very likable. And he was supposed to be sort of like the leading man, which, if you've seen the final cut, All right. So the studio said this, or Stu Kornfeld mostly said, well, I want to make this film. So the studio said, okay, we won't finance it, but if you find somebody to put up the money, then we will distribute the final project. Of course, pending our approval, blah, 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 all this studio shit. Right. So, Stu Kornfeld worked with a small-time guy in Hollywood called Mel Brooks, or he worked with him before on Elephant Man. And Mel Brooks read the original script, and he said, I like it. It needs a little bit more pizzazz, but I will back this. But I have two terms. One of the terms is I don't want any credit on the film. So we, Brooks Films will give you the money, but I don't want this to be I don't want it to be on the marquee or on the credits, because I don't want the Hollywood audience confuse the fact that this is a horror film or like a serious film and think this is a parody of some sort, because Mel Brooks commands the parody in Hollywood. And the second thing is Pogue has to go, because we need some a second perspective on this that it's just Pogue will not give us. And Pogue generally agreed. He stepped down. They brought a guy called Wallen Green, who submitted a draft, which Brooks also didn't like, and they actually recalled Pogue on the project as well. While all this is happening with the script itself, they were looking for a director. The first director that they actually wanted was David Cronenberg, but at the time he was working on what was then, I think it didn't really have a title yet, but it would become Total Recall. So David Cronenberg just didn't have the time to deal with it. So a young British director called Robert Beeman was called. He was actually hired, and he was in pre-production, doing some pre-production stuff, starting to work on the film. And he took a vacation to South Africa, where his entire family had an accident and his daughter was killed. So he stepped away. The entire project halted for about 4, 5, 6 months, something like that. And eventually, when Beeman sort of said, well, they told Beeman, well, you need to, put this gear into motion. He said, I can't do it. I can't come back yet. It's too soon. They released him out of the contract, and by happenstance, a lot because of a guy called Dino De Laurentiis, the guy who actually produced Total Recall. And if you don't, Dino De Laurentiis, he is a very, let's say, a guy that has an opinion. Him and Cronenberg did not see eye to eye, and the whole Total Recall thing just kind of collapsed. So Cronenberg was available and was hired for the movie, but he also had 2 contingencies. One of them is, I need a little bit more of creative control than you would like. And 2, I want to come in and completely rewrite the script. Now, Cronenberg said he read about 16 pages of the original draft, and he just tossed it aside. It said it was too boring. It was not his style. It needs to be a Cronenberg-esque movie, which means we need to film it in Canada. We need to film it there. I want to bring in my own people, my own special effects, and I want to have everything that I want to do sort of being approved. He didn't have complete autonomous control. There was some guardrails, but it is his film, to say the least. And I like that. Cronenberg had not complete control, but he wanted to have as much say as possible. And Dobefet said it in the chat. Cronenberg had a third demand. He wanted $1 million salary, which Brooks gave him. That is absolutely correct. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw it. I didn't write it in my notes. He got twice as much money for making The Fly as he did for making The Dead Zone, which I think was like one of his staple films. It's like Eraserhead for David Lynch. And of course, my slow moving elevator keeps moving slower. I apologize. It's going to be a thing on the show for a while until I fix it. I mean, I don't want to fix it, but whatever. Okay, let's continue. Casting. Now, we all know Jeff Goldblum as, I will highlight this because it actually pertains to Jeff Goldblum. I Am Jeff Goldblum this role was one of his sort of, again, staple role, the role that kind of pushed his career forward. He did bits and pieces here and there, but this is the one where he was like, okay, he's an actor. But before that, he wasn't even, considered for the role at all. Mel Brooks wanted Pierce Brosnan for the role. Yes, that Pierce Brosnan. But Cronenberg completely rejected it. He said he is tall enough, but he's too good looking for the role. Yes, too good looking for the role. And he wanted either John Malkovich or John Lithgow. Both rejected the offers. And Lithgow actually said that it was too grotesque for him, which is very, very interesting. Michael Keaton and Richard Dreyfuss were offered the role, and they refused because they actually did not want to work with any prosthetics whatsoever. And yes, James, they did want Michael Keaton for the role. Oddly enough, with 6 Degrees from Kevin Bacon, Michael Keaton actually did quite a lot of prosthetics in Beetlejuice a couple of years later after this movie. And he also worked with Gina Davis, who is in The Fly. So, apparently, Jeff Goldblum, who was approached, said, yeah, I would work with prosthetics, no problem. The only issue is there was no leading lady. They tried a few people like Jennifer Jason Leigh and a few others, and they were all rejected, not because they had bad auditions or anything, but Mel Brooks said that they had too much of a recognizable face to be on the movie. He insisted on having as much as fresh new faces as possible, which I think is good. I think it's very good. So at the time, Jeff Goldblum was dating Gina Davis because both of them were worked on, I think it's Earth Girls Are Too Easy or Earth Girls Are Easy. I need to Google this. Is Earth Girls Are Easy, which came out a little bit later, but they were working on it at the time. They were a couple at the time, so they were working on it. Transylvania 6-5000? They were working on that one too? I don't think I've... Yeah, Earth Girls Are Easy came out in 1988, but they were working on it at the time. The thing about it is, David Cronenberg did not want to work with a real life couple. He thought it was too disturbing on set. Hold that thought. It comes back around in a minute. But of course, Cronenberg didn't find his leading lady, so he turned to Gina Davis. She came in, nailed the audition. Fantastic. Gina Davis is an awesome actress. We talked about her a little bit when she literally nailed the role in A League of Their Own, especially the private audition. And the thing about it is, once Gina Davis was on set, Cronenberg was really happy because both Jeff and Gina had a lot of chemistry on screen, not to mention off screen, but on screen they had a lot of chemistry, which works to sell the entire weird love triangle. But the fact of the matter is, when Gina was on set with Stans, I think it's Jeff. I hate names. I detest names. John Getz. Sorry, not Stans. John Getz. Once Gina was doing scenes with him, not passionate scenes, just regular scenes, and Jeff Goldblum was on set, he was very disruptive, to say the least, which means at some point, Cronenberg had to physically remove Jeff Goldblum from the set in order for everything to just, be on still water and just do the scene and make it work. One of the scenes that really pissed Goldblum off and set off his jealous rage is the fact that they had a bed scene together after the dreams, regarded the dream scene. And there was a scene that they were kind of supposed to have a relationship, but that was cut before it was even shot. And Goldblum was like, no. He didn't have any say, but he definitely didn't want that to happen. Now, talking about Goldblum himself, there were several scenes, and if you've watched the movie before, and if you watched Jeff Goldblum's work before, You might have noticed some Goldblum isms. Like we kind of talked about it when we discussed Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage has these cageisms. The fact of the matter is, Jeff Goldblum had a script. He worked on the script, but also he added a lot of things that were not there. Every time you see him half talking to himself or talking as he's walking away from the scene, that is a lot of things that were allowed by Cronenberg to ad-lib and add to these things because Cronenberg loved that extra little bit. It was still within the confines of his thing, but it just, Goldblum had that extra mile that he does almost in any work he does, and he is kind of allowed to because it enhances the scene. All right. Special effects. Special effects were done by one called Chris Wallace. Now, Chris Wallace, I think I know him only by his work on the Gremlins, but he also worked with Cronenberg on Scanners, on his one of the movies I actually love from David Cronenberg that, you know, I've seen before, but about a couple of years ago when I kind of started focusing on reviewing movies, it was one of those movies where I had to okay, I need to rewatch this with a critical eye and have a review on it. And it was one of my favorite reviews to do because it's sort of a movie that is not too horror-y, more thrillery, but it was done so well. And the concept of it is so well done. It's just so good. And now that kind of did the research and Chris Wallace did the makeup and special effects there, fucking awesome. The only issue with Chris Wallace that I have is the fact that Chris Wallace actually was the director of The Fly 2 with Eric Stoltz, which is kind of a black mark, I would say. But yeah, he also the guy who created the Gremlins, the Gremlins, not the furry animals. But yeah, okay. Now a little bit of fun stuff. Jeff Goldblum, who agreed to do the prosthetics, one of the concepts that Chris Wallace came up with is the sort of like the 8 phases of Brundle or Brundlefly. And at the very last stages of the Brundlefly, it took about 5 hours to put Jeff Goldblum in that suit with the makeup. And he said it was very difficult to work with it, because it actually pressed on his eyes and it was very hard to be expressive with your eyes, especially Jeff Goldblum eyes, you know, big balls. It was an issue for him. Plus, it was very heavy, so he wasn't moving correctly. But actually, David Cronenberg liked it because he didn't move like a human should, but more of this monster that he becomes. So to Cronenberg, it was, you know, work with it, baby, work with it. Now, both Mel Brooks and Cronenberg commissioned a song for the soundtrack. The song is by Brian Ferry, and the song's name is "Help Me." Very fitting. But the thing is, the song itself is a ballad. It's like a lovey-dovey ballad, and it was supposed to come up while the credits were rolling. Now, the score was done by Howard Shore, and it didn't quite fit with the Howard Shore score. And so they had a screening, and Mel Brooks even said, yeah, no, the song doesn't quite fit. But, and by the way, it didn't actually make it into the soundtrack, but you can still hear the song when there's that bar scene where he picks up Tawny, right? So you kind of hear it in the background, but not explicitly. Now, for those of you who have watched the movie more times than I did, you will notice that there is a baboon, a live baboon, that sometimes like sort of jumps on Jeff Goldblum. And in hindsight, when I was a kid, when I was about 12, 13, and I saw this for the very first time, I thought, whoa, cool, a monkey. Now that I'm an adult and I know how vicious baboons really are, I was like, I forgot it was an actual baboon. How did it make it work? Well, essentially, it was a stroke of luck with the baboon, because the baboon was scared of the flashing lights. And there were a few scenes at the beginning where the teleportation works. There's flashing lights in the background, and the baboon went fucking, and this is a pun here, ape shit. The thing about it is, nobody messed with the baboon at all, or the baboon didn't mess with anybody, because it actually developed this weird relationship with Jeff Goldblum. And the fact that Jeff Goldblum is like 6'4", 6'5", it actually dominated the baboon in terms of how tall he is. And the only way the Wrangler can sort of satiate the baboon is for him to interact with Jeff Goldblum. And even the Wrangler said, if Jeff wasn't, the man who he is and how tall he was and how domineering he was on the baboon, I think there were a few female workers that would have had their tits ripped off, essentially. He went a little bit more descriptive. Let's just say there could have been a lot of real life body horror happening behind the scenes. All right. Enough of that. Okay. The vomit. I know it's really nothing, but I think it's worth discussing. The vomit was a mixture of honey, eggs, and milk. And it kind of not looked like a vomit. It kind of looks like a different body fluid, but coming out of a person's mouth. And I'll stop. The thing about it is, there is the scene where Stannis gets his leg vomited on and gets sort of removed. Essentially, there was a scene that was not shot but discussed. That what was supposed to happen is Brundlefly would have vomit on the leg and then taking the foot, because that's all that's left is the foot. He was supposed to eat it in front of Stannis. Even Cronenberg said it was a bit much for the final cut. So they kind of canned that. But in a weird turn of events, John Getz, who plays Stannis, actually had the foot prop. He took it home. And he probably had it stashed away like the Brundle Museum somewhere in his house, which is a weird thought, but we'll leave it as a thought. There were several scenes that were actually shot and then deleted, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were added to the DVD or the Blu-ray as extra scenes. Because I know they were on YouTube. I saw them on YouTube. They were interesting, but, one of them was, and this was one of the scenes where Mel Brooks said this was a bit too much, because it made Brundle not seem likable enough for people to care. There was a scene where, in order to sort of get the idea of separating Brundle from the Fly, he took a baboon and a cat and spliced them together. And then when it was too monstrous, he beat it to death with a lead pipe. That got canned. There was a scene of Brundlefly when Veronica was going to the abortion clinic and was sitting there, and then he took her. Remember that? There was a scene before that where there was an insect growth coming out of him while he was going to Veronica, and he gnawed it off and ate it, sort of broke it apart, and that was nixed as well. And last one was, there was another dream sequence. If you remember, there was a dream sequence where she gives birth to a maggot, essentially, or a cocoon. And there was another scene where Veronica sees her baby gets born out of a cocoon and into this baby / butterfly thing. And that was cut because a butterfly and a fly have nothing to do with each other. The monkey cat scene was infamous for years before the final was included on the DVD. I thought as much. I haven't seen the DVD. I saw a different cut on a streaming service. Not a cut. I've seen the movie on a streaming service. But yeah, cool. Two more things. The telepods themselves, if you look at them, they were designed by Cronenberg himself, and he modeled them over his own motorcycle. So it looks like the motorcycle engine. And Be Very Afraid was a very famous, well, it is one of the, if not the most famous line from this movie. It was uttered by Veronica, and it was used as the tagline for the trailer itself. Ooh, Boba Fett, another. The insect leg was a part of the monkey cat scene, and it was all deleted because it was the last 20 minutes of the movie, and it was seemed too abrupt. Yeah. And it was, again, remember, I said that Cronenberg sort of had his, leave me alone and I will deliver you a movie, and this is my vision for the movie. But he did have a little bit of guardrails. Mel Brooks knows movies and knows what sells and what doesn't. And you can go full on body horror, and this movie went full out with the effects and everything. However, the stuff that was a little bit too much and was curtailed, you watch the movie now, you don't really need those scenes, and they don't add too much. There were a few scenes that were written down as well, that had to do with developing the relationship between Brundle and Veronica, but they were cut in terms of story cut because it didn't quite add too much to the story. It was just recycling more stuff. And to be honest, the movie is 90 minutes or 92 minutes. If you cut away all the, the start of the credits and the end credits, it's about 90 minutes flat. Pretty good storytelling. And there was were a lot of gaps that were kind of leapt forth, but they all had some sort of explanation. So we'll talk about it when we talk about the movie. But yeah, the metamorphosis was not like sudden, and it wasn't in a few days. There was a moment there where, and I forgot it too, there was a moment there where 4 weeks have passed, and then Brundle calls Veronica to come and see him, and when she does, he's with the two Canes. So a lot of time passage happens, and some of it gets explained, and some of it does not. But the story rolls on, and it's not just from now to now, which is, I think it's good. In total, budget. Some websites say 9 million, some websites say 15 million. Let's call it between 9 and 15 for the budget. The movie made $60 million worldwide, which was 40 domestic and 20 international. Pretty good for a body horror movie, essentially. But yeah, all right, cool. Want to do the first game of the night? Let's do the first game of the night. It is 40 minutes after the hour. Let us set everything up. Thank you, Discord. Go away now. Apparently, okay. Well, my Discord popped only because I was in a giveaway competition to get a video game thing, and I didn't win. Essentially, it doesn't matter. I don't need another video game in my life right now, but we'll call it what it is. It is time for our first game of the night. You know it. You'll love it. It is Missing Marquee. Missing Marquee, for the uninitiated, is we take 10 posters of movies, have their text written off, we display them, and you guys in the chat will have to guess which movie this is, and I will help you, of course. But please remember, guys, I think last week or the week before that, the lag between what you see and what I do is a little bit long. I've rechecked it again. It is the lowest I can make it just because of these games and your participation. Very fitting for the month. And by the way, this was random. And today we've got 11 movies, not 10. Sander has got it. It is Child's Play. And James accurately said it is Child's Play 2. It is actually Child's Play, not Child's Play 2. It is Child's Play. I checked it. It was on last time, and I was scolded. It was Child's Play. Yes. Kalikioki is correct. It is that Christian Bale movie that we did cover. It is American Psycho. Mm-mm. And welcome, Becky. And I didn't say it before, Doba Fed. Well, welcome back, man. Welcome back. Always glad to see you around. Talking, giving some information. Can't remember the name. Doba Fett remembers the name. It is Boys Don't Cry. I love this movie. And welcome, Becky. Welcome, Becky. I love this. Unironically, I love this movie. It was one of those movies where I started to watch. I was like, oh, Stallone made another stinker. And then I fully watched it. It is really good. It is not The Expendables 2 because this is Escape Plan. Correct. Talking about baboons and stuff. It is not baboons. It is Gorillas in the Mist. Correct. Becky, you're a bit too late, but it's okay. It depends on what platform you're watching. Sometimes the lag's a little bit too much. It is, of course, Leon, or as Kaladin puts it, Leon the Professional. Depending on which side of the Atlantic you are, it could be just The Professional. But yeah. I watched this movie, or a snippet of this movie, 2 days ago. And I have to say, I still like it. Still love it. It is, of course, where's the first guy? Doba Fett has been first. and foremost, but all of you, it is Mrs. Doubtfire. Correct. This is a terrible movie. This is one of those movies where it made me not like Colin Farrell. Yes. Who's in it? It is, of course, Phone Booth. Not Mrs. Doubtfire. Phone Booth. It is Phone Booth, correct. The movie that paid Halle Berry $500,000 for each boob, where in the same year she did a movie that basically she was paid scale to do, and she won an Oscar. This is the famous, not Phone Booth, Swordfish. Come on, Becky, come on. James is like, I really love Phone Booth. You're more than welcome to like anything you like. I said I don't like Phone Booth. Yes. A lot of classics today. Dude, it's random. It's random. This is a movie we did cover. I absolutely love the poster because it kind of gives it away without actually giving it away. I actually unironically love this movie. The Cabin in the Woods is correct. It is sort of both a parody and a non-parody at the same time. And I think I mentioned it on the show. Unironically, I think we did it, last year? I think. Fucking fantastic movie. Again, one of those movies where people absolutely forgot, but they quote it, but they don't know where the quote is from. It is, of course, White Men Can't Jump. And if you haven't seen this movie, only saw the posters or saw, I don't know, YouTube shorts and all that stuff, and if you haven't watched this movie, you really should. It is fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. It is both so 90s and so America still till today. Still till today. All right. Let us start. And like I said, I don't know if I'm going to go the full 2 hours today. Still going to give you another game. Don't worry. But we'll kind of run through the stuff. And if you guys have anything that you want to share, feel, I am with you more today because I don't have anyone to bounce with except you guys. So let's do it. Martin. I was going to say Martin Brundle, but is the name Martin Brundle comes from the driver, Martin Brundle, a Formula One driver who David Cronenberg took the name of and put it as Seth Brundle. Now, I don't love the I don't like the people being called Seth. So Seth MacFarlane, Seth Greens. I don't like the name Seth. I don't like it. It's just the name of a villain to me. Martin Brundle is the Eric Stoltz character. Martin Brundle is Martin Brundle is the driver, isn't he? Yeah. He's the race guy is the Formula One driver. Is it it's the name of Eric Stoltz, really? I mean, we can talk about Eric Stoltz. We can talk about, look, you know what? Let's have Seth Brundle's face in our midst. Let's have a little bit more cinematic view. Let's see. Let's call it that. Okay. Let's do it like this. So I didn't really want to talk about the sequel, but we'll touch upon it. So there were a lot of proposed sequels and one sequel that was actually made. So the sequel that was actually made, directed by Chris Wallace, starred Eric Stoltz, and it sort of works on on the fact that Veronica did have the baby, it was fine. In the movie, it comes out like in the dream, so a cocoon. But when they open the cocoon, there's a live baby in there. But he only does the transformation a little bit later, if I remember correctly, and it's weird. And he also works on the teleportation thing. Again, weird. Why do you hate Seth? Not Seth the character. I hate Seth the name. I don't hate Seth Green or Seth MacFarlane or any of the Seth. I just don't like the name. To me, it's always seemed like a villain's name. Daphne Zuniga is in it. It's a bad movie, but I may have to watch it. I remember that when he turned into a fly, instead of in here, you got him sort of spitting out the vomit. In the Fly 2, he kind of projects it like a fucking hose, and it's disturbing and crazy. But just before I think, I don't remember, the Fly 2 was like 88 or something like that, or 90. Somewhere in the vicinity, there was a version where Rennie Harlin, who was at the time already with Gina Davis after she broke up with Jeff Goldblum, they were intending on making a sequel called Flies, jumping off Alien and Aliens, and it didn't quite make it into film. 88. Thank you, Sander. And it was supposed to come out around the 90s and sort of jump over the Fly 2 or somewhere and do sort of like a weird amalgamation of Veronica's character not having an abortion and then having twin sons, essentially, and both were getting into the phase where they are starting to change. So what they did was she was supposed to put them in the cell, in the teleportation cell, jump them over to the other one, splitting away the bad sides and creating just the one son, which was a whole complete son. And then she would be accused of murder because two boys came in, one boy came out the other end. That was it. And there was a Cronenberg-esque, they started to work on the script around 2003, left it alone, came back. Cronenberg came back to it in 2009, started to work on it, left it alone, came back to it 2012 or 2013, and by then there was nothing. Yeah, James, lol is the correct sort of reaction. But yes, so Seth Brundle and Veronica sort of like get together in this conference, and in this conference, Seth is like, yeah, I have something that would literally change the entire world. Now, I want to talk about the sort of premise. Why is Seth so obsessed about this teleportation thing? And it's very honest and has actual story basis for it, because essentially Seth, who is this mad genius that everybody knows is a genius, has motion sickness. He doesn't like to be on the ride. He doesn't like to be on a car or a plane or a boat or anything. He said he actually had almost vomited on his own tricycle when he was a kid, making it sort of punch in that he really doesn't like moving things at all. And because he's such a recluse, he doesn't even want to discuss this project in this conference should any scientist might have heard this thing. Now, when you see this, he's like, why don't you go in like to my apartment and I will, show you this project I'm working on. And I thought, well, this is the start of a nice little way where Gina Davis is never to be heard of ever again. And also, I like the fact that he drives her into this place and it's so remote. It kind of looks like this abandoned factory for some reason. It gave me sort of RoboCop-esque vibes. And she goes into his apartment and it doesn't seem suspicious at all. At all. Her sort of red lights doesn't flash. Careful, it's creepo. No. Thing about it is, he shows her the telepods and would you like to see how it works? And I was like, I mean, to be fair, up until the point where he kind of discovers, Veronica tells him, look, he shows her the thing with the stalking. She says, this is amazing. This is the find of the century. If this works, I have to write about it. I'm a journalist. And he's like, no. I just wanted to show you this. Which leads me backwards into the fact that he was just trying to impress a girl, but he's so socially awkward. He doesn't quite know where it's going to lead to, or he is planning to make it lead into something, into bed. But he's a creep, but he's not, fully committed to the creepness to it. But when he finds out that she's a journalist, he's like, no. This is not going to work. I can't have you, I can't. What is it? Come on. Don't be like this. All right. Let me be there. So I can't show you this. This is not ready. And the fact, the reason why it's not ready comes into play real quick. Why is it not ready? Because I can't teleport a real life object. But of course, Veronica, being the ultimate professional, is like, I need, and of course she tapes it all, and he asks her for the tape. And she like, I am the journalist. I have to be a journalist. So she goes into her editor and pitches the story. Seth is just socially awkward guy with genius intentions. Yes, very much so. And it's like, exactly who the type is immediately, which can be misinterpreted as a creepy behavior. Correct, James. That is. And remember, even at the time, people would most likely think it's a weird behavior. But now that we have sort of a hindsight, and us that watched a lot of movies or a lot of news can sort of piece together what was going on. But to me, and I will do a comparison because I came up with it today when I rewatched the movie again. I think Seth or Brundle is more of a Sheldon type of genius rather than a really creepy guy, where Sheldon he's sort of asexual and he just wants to show off. And Seth is very much of like, I'm going to show this off to a girl because I think this is cool. This is a cool thing I can do. It's just a little snag. The fact that it has a snag, that is the reason why he doesn't want to publish this. And even tells her, look, I'm getting funding for this thing and people don't ask me questions. That's why I'm able to do what I do and not be encroached by this company who gives me money or gives me these grants. And the thing about the flesh comes in when they sit down to have the talk, because Veronica goes to her editor, which is her ex-boyfriend, and he's like, I think there's something here. And he says he's a con artist. Seth reaches out to her. They have this talk over some burgers. And he said, look, I don't want you to go out with this, but I have a suggestion. Let's do a collab. You don't write anything, but you'll follow me on the day-to-day. And at the end of the process, which is me getting teleported, and he says it, once I solve the issue of the flesh, the culmination of this thing would be I will personally be teleported and you can write the book. And this is the hook that hooks in Veronica because her ex-boyfriend boss doesn't want her to write about this thing at all, which gets flipped around once he gets jealous. But for now, it is down to that. We get a little bit of a glimpse on the fact that her ex-boyfriend boss is a little bit more creepy than just not believing in her and just wants to date her because he has a key to her apartment, even though they're not together. And there was a lot more of these creepy behaviors coming in as soon as Seth gets turned, Status is the one that gets not, you know what, we'll call it less creepy and more of a concerned friend or boss rather than a boyfriend, I would say. A bit scummy means in more ways than one. Yes, I know. Let's just say this. There were a lot of points in this movie where in the dialogue, it kind of reveals stuff on the characters without, again, hammering it into your face, pointing you into the direction it wants to go. But, you know, saying this here, saying that there, kind of gives you that impression of, oh, I see what's going on. I see what's happening. It kind of tells you and then shows you and not tell you it told you, I guess. It does say a lot. It does say a lot, but it doesn't say anything sort of that way. And again, doesn't lead you on the nose. All right, the baboon. Oh, I can't show this. I can't show this. Okay, we can show this. So they get to some sort of a rhythm where Seth is doing the science and Veronica is asking some questions and also videotaping the whole thing. That, not gonna lie, I had the same type of camera when I was in high school doing film class. Yeah. Unreal, by the way. I saw that and I was like, oh, I know this. I know exactly how to actually do anything on this camera and make it look good, as much as good as you can in like early 90s, I guess. Boba Fett. That is really interesting. I can't rewatch the last 5 minutes of the movie. The last 5 minutes of the movie is the most gory and the most thing that most people had problems with, especially, you know, Cronenberg, but generally speaking, horror films. It is very graphic. And a lot of people had issues with it. I saw sort of like, there was a line I read somewhere about the fact that the audience in the test audience didn't quite like the ending, but when they were told the alternative ending, they were like, we're fine with this. We're fine with that one. A lot of like the really disgusting things are absolutely minute when it comes to like a Cronenberg movie, I think. Like it's more in akin of Scanners where there's a lot of story going on, very, very small amounts of gore or body horror. More than you, like less than you remember on Scanners, for sure. Like for sure. this moment where he starts off with the experiment and nothing really works, I think was there just to show us how problematic it is, this whole process. And again, Seth says it. There's a moment where Seth says it. It was like, there seems to be a little bit too much information for the computer to incorporate because it's not programmed good enough. And I need to make sure I program it correctly. And he feels really frustrated. And out of the frustration and the fact that they're working several hours, that's where the romance kind of starts. As they roll around in bed and he gets his, like, this big, massive chip stuck in his back. And from there, you kind of get to see the fly come out a little bit later. I found it really interesting because if you guys remember or don't remember, these big chips were not called chips. They were actually called bugs back in the day because they kind of look like insects with like little tiny feet because it has a lot of prongs at the end of it. That's what I remember. It's like everyone that, like, I wasn't really into computer culture. I did have a PC in the house. And everyone who talked about PCs that I can hear, there was a TV show that was like PC oriented or games oriented TV show back in the day. I think it was 90 or 91 that it kind of started. They called it bugs, the chips. They didn't call it memory chips. They actually called it memory bugs. So I found it really interesting that it was lodged in his back and then the bug came out of it. Where was I? Like male private parts in maggot food. These things that I look always. Those are things that I look away from when watching these films or these shows. Yeah, man. It for some people, like, real body horror disgusts them, essentially. But the fact of the matter is, they really enjoy the other parts of this movie. This movie is, to me, not just the science stuff or the horror stuff. The real issue in this movie is this weird love triangle that we have over here that is not really a love triangle because Veronica doesn't love Stathis. He loves her, and Seth kind of he loves Veronica at the start, but when he gets to turn, Veronica does not seem to be a love interest, more like a sexual interest. And there was a moment there, I'll skip forward a little bit. There was a moment there after he gets turned where they have this sex session where Veronica's like, I can't take it anymore. I need to have a stop. And he's like, okay, I'm ready again. It's like, oh shit, there's something going on. Well, I'll move a little bit forward. Now, after a certain sex escapade, it seems like Seth has an idea of what to tell the computer in order to solve the flesh issue. So the fact of the matter is, I'll bring it down for a little bit. Like I said, one of the core issues of this movie is not just the gore, it's also the story. And one of the story elements that we have here is the fact that Seth is a recluse. He doesn't have anybody to bounce ideas from. But when Veronica goes into the picture, Veronica doesn't know about the sciencey stuff, but she does know she is a love interest. And his interactions with her, the fact that he has somebody to bounce ideas from, again, it is off screen. It is not, you don't see it in any scene. And I think it's a little bit implied that the fact that now that he has somebody to love and work with, because she's there every day trying to do these tests and trying to, document this whole process, the fact that there is somebody to bounce off of helps Seth solve the flesh issue. And the flesh is sort of like if you know and he mentions Einstein too, the fact that he wears the same outfit every day in order to clear his mind and make sure it's just focused on the target. The fact of the matter is, Einstein also had a wife to bounce ideas from, and then he kind of had a girlfriend to bounce ideas from, whether they knew it or not. And in this way, Seth kind of finds the other side of the equation to solve the flesh issue. And it's more, let's just say this in other terms, it turns him into more than ones and zeros, more than binary code. And now he kind of, I have a different way of looking at it. And in that way, he solves the issue. But the issue is, once he replicates this, essentially an animate object, but it is flesh, it is that steak. Once Veronica eats the other, we'll call it replicated steak, it tastes funny. It tastes synthetic. And I was like, this is way too much on the nose. Way too much on the nose for this. This is really good. And it kind of reminds me of more modern films that or TV shows that kind of discuss the idea of teleportation without having it there. It's not Star Trek. And in Star Trek's like, it's there, right? They don't explain it. They don't talk about it. They go a little bit into the minutia in the Next Generation, but not too much. And in this story where they kind of discuss teleportation and the fact that it destroys you and then it rebuilds you on the other side, and what if there's something that the computer doesn't actually have in terms of information? What happens on the other side? Who is this person on the other side? That is a philosophical question. Is it really you? Is it a clone you? And that philosophical question, I bet you it was already there during the mid-'80s, because, you know, teleportation was a thing or the idea of teleportation was from Star Trek in the mid-'60s. So, you know, there was a lot of that going on. I thought it was really interesting that it kind of came up at a small little scene that kind of makes Seth be the one that kind of figures it out, but it doesn't quite figure it out till like the whole thing. Now, the status thing. Status is jealous because Veronica is with this new boyfriend. He's Seth. He's smart. And of course, he wants to sabotage that. And what he does is he takes Veronica's initial proposal to him and he actually makes it into a story, and he kind of forces her back into his life by trying to out Seth. And when Veronica kind of confronts Seth with this entire information, he doesn't seem like he's bothered anymore, right? Because at this point, he's like, I have solved this issue, right? I have solved it. Griffin, quick note. Yes, teleportation, teleports have been hotly debated if it's you or not, and what's led to evil Kirk in the episode. I don't remember all the episodes from the original show. I've seen all of them with my wife 4 years ago. I mean, I've seen bits and pieces when I was a kid, not the whole thing. But rewatching the entire series, that all three, I think it's 3 seasons. Again, I don't remember everything. I'm sorry, but yes, the whole deconstructing you and reconstructing you, it's a whole philosophical question, like a science philosophical question was brought up. It is crazy how he just openly blurts out, "I followed you." Yeah. Stathis is crazy. He's not crazy. He's like a crazy, jealous ex-boyfriend type deal. when she confronts him in his office, he's more like, I won't publish it, but you need to like be with me. Oh, and by the way, why don't we just have a sexual relationship? We don't have to be friends or have love interest, just sex. And I was like, you're more creep than Seth, and Seth has major creepy vibes. All right. So Seth figures it out. Veronica is not there. What he does, he's like, I'm going to try and test it on the other baboon's brother. And the baboon comes out correct at the other end. The thing about it is, Seth is aware of Stathis's approach to Veronica. So he is now the jealous one. Right? They had that conversation where she goes to Seth and it's like, he's going to publish this. And Seth is, like I said, nonchalant. But then, of course, when she leaves, he goes crazy and puts a baboon in the teleporter. And suddenly the baboon comes out correctly on the other end, which leads Seth to have a little bit of a drink. A little bit, not a lot. And it's like, I'm catching on. She's going to go back to him because of this thing. Because that's the leverage that he has on her. And of course, Veronica doesn't plan on it at all. And he goes into the thing. And of course, there was a fly. And the fact of the matter is, the fly is there, and it actually bothered the baboon for some reason. And he goes into the thing, and the computer goes haywire, and he gets reanimated, essentially incorporating the fly into Brundle. And now starts this weird journey that Seth has, where at one point he gets up and I'm just waiting for the movie to catch up. Missed it by a tiny bit. So essentially he wakes up in the middle of the night after having sex with Veronica, and suddenly he's a world-class gymnast. I appreciate that Jeff Goldblum worked his ass off to make sure his body is in tip-top shape in order for the prosthetics to completely cover his entire body. But for the very short moments that he has his shirt off, he looks really good. Like you can see he worked on it, but he's not steroided up. He's just toned. And for that brief moment where he picks himself up, and then it turns into like the stunt guy, where the stunt guy has a lot, like the wig really covers his face. And it really shows. Yes, it really shows on the film, because he looks like he's been through this metamorphosis of sort. Even though when he goes into the telepod with the fly, he looks good. But when he comes out and kind of stretches it up, and you can see his toned body. Yes, I know I'm a little bit over exaggerating here. It sells the fact that he feels great, and they're having this amazing long sessions of sex, and it really is kind of weird that he talks about, his personal potential and how he neglected himself for all these years, all the while putting another teaspoon of sugar and another teaspoon of sugar and another teaspoon of sugar. It kind of reminds me of like the start of Men in Black when Edgar gets replaced by the bug and he goes into like, I want water. It's like sugar in water. Because I want you want sugar water? It's like, yes. Why? Because you need it to be dissolved in something. And even Veronica says, do you want some coffee with your sugar? And I was like, that's a joke. I don't know if it's written in the script, but it's sort of on point. And anybody who would be sitting there in front of Seth, kind of looking at what he does and like would say the same exact thing. It was like, do you want some coffee with that sugar? Yeah. I love that line. I really love that line. But Seth, wanted to get that. Yeah, this. Like I said, there's that wound that allows the sort of the fly genes to seep out. And when Veronica notices it, she kind of prickles it. And he says, well, I'm getting old. I get hair in weird places. And I thought it was hilarious because, you know, old people do get hair in weird places. If you don't know, I do. So I chuckled at this. And when I was a kid, I was like, didn't even notice it. Now, yeah. And she actually takes a scissor and cuts it. And he flinches for a little bit. But we know what's going on. And there's a moment there where he's like, okay, if you don't want to have sex with me that much, why am I even with you? And that at that point, he sort of, you can see in his face, he turns on Veronica for no apparent reason. And she is completely shocked. And he pushes her away. And of course, he goes out to find some puss, we'll call it. There's a moment there where he tells her, he goes into this bet with these guys, and it's like $100. I'm going to beat one of you two, and also I'm going to take the girl. And she turns to him, is like, what am I looking at? Am I a whore? And I was like, you kind of look like a hooker, man. You're dressed like one. City Slickers referenced that scene. Billy Crystal says he's getting hair on his back and it looks like from The Flight. I remember that. Of course. I haven't seen City Slickers in a while. But yeah, I remember that thing. At this point, to me, this was the first time you kind of get the inkling of where the body horror starts, because when he does the arm wrestling thing, he tears this guy's arm off, and it really looks like, you know, okay, I know what I've signed in for. This is exactly what I've signed in for. It really looks like the guy's get his hand ripped off. Now, at this point, you can definitely tell on Jeff Goldblum's face, and this is one of the things that that Chris Wallace talked about. I think he said the 8 phases of Brundle, where the first phase is just a little bit of facial, a little bit of facial makeup where you can see the deterioration of the human. But it's weird, and it's there, and it kind of starts off even a little before that, where he has a little bit of acne before he pushes Veronica away. And this girl, Tawny, right before, they have a little bit of, a sexual encounter, but you don't see it. And she looks at him do the teleportation thing. Oh, I can't show this. She just looks at the second pod, and suddenly he emerges from this pod, right? I'm just waiting for the scene to come in. You don't see anything, but yeah, he emerges from this pod, and she's like, what the hell just happened? Right? One of the 8 phases was a cutout of the film, since the only one shown the monkey. Yes. There was, it's sort of between the Brundle that was climbing on the wall and the Brundle that went out and got Veronica. One of them. Now I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Because from this moment, there's a lot of phases or scenes that I can't show. But Veronica comes in to talk to Seth. Tawny, the girl, is there. They have some sort of encounter. She tells Seth, I don't want to see you anymore. He tells her, Brundle tells Veronica, I don't want to see you anymore. Get out of here. Your job is done. You're not going to write this book. Go away. And Veronica still loves him. All right. And once he reverts back to his recluse's phase, he starts to deteriorate. And at this point, like I said, there's a moment there where he calls Veronica, and it's 4 weeks later. And at the moment after he, I like the fact that there's a moment here. Yes, this one, where he starts to mess with his computer, and he kind of figures out, oh shit, I've been infused with this housefly. So I know that I'm turning, but I don't know what I'm turning into. And when she goes back to talk to him, he kind of says, I don't want you to be infected. Even though he kind of knows he got spliced rather than is carrying some sort of a disease, he tells her it's a disease. And at this point, this is something, again, to me, I don't know if that scene is there to kind of shows you how delusional he is. In terms of, he knows he's been spliced, but he tells her it's an infectious disease. Or he thinks that the splicing made him have some sort of a cancer. But I don't know. This is where, to me, it's a little bit open to interpretation because it's not specifically said and not specifically shown. Thank you, James, for joining me. We'll be done. I think we're going to get the full 2 hours. So enjoy the rest of the show later on the replay. Don't worry about it. Have a good one. And thank you for the input because much appreciated. Much appreciated. And Veronica is there. She's like, I don't accept it. And she also gets to see him vomit on those donuts. And she is disgusted. But I think she's disgusted, but she feels sorry for him because he kind of looks like he's being irradiated with radiation rather than, it's not the same guy. And again, she loves him. But then, of course, there's the proverbial fly in the ointment. What is that fly in the ointment? Even though the story is already getting screwed up from moment to moment, is the fact that she discovers that she has a baby. And then she goes to see Seth, and there's another metamorphosis going on. The the fact that his hands are different. This is another one of those phases. His hands are different. And he shows her, he wants her to film him vomit on these things and eat it. And of course, she relents because she loves him. She sees past the disgust and she knows there's a brundle in there and not just a brundle fly. But of course, she shows it to Stathis. And then she tells him, I'm pregnant. And of course, Stathis being the upscale kind of guy that we think he is, essentially he's a scumbag, or he is a bit scummy. Of course, this is the 80s, guys, where abortion is kind of forbidden in most places and done on the hush-hush. It's done, but on the hush-hush. Of course, Stathis is the one that knows a guy who knows a guy that can make her have an abortion. But before that, Veronica has a dream. And I'm showing you this. I can't show a lot, but because it has a lot of blood and stuff. But we have a little bit of a director's cameo. Now, David Cronenberg does not love to do cameos. Or back then, he wasn't into doing any cameos. Thank you. But Gina Davis told him that he needs to do it. I don't know why she thought it would be nice for him to do the cameo, but he did. So he was in between her legs. Obviously, she wasn't naked, obviously. But it's sort of to symbolize that David Cronenberg delivered this monstrosity of a movie, but also the monstrosity from Veronica. I found it hilarious. And it's sort of on the nose, but I found it really hilarious. It's one of those things that I find really funny. Not ha-ha funny, but like, that's really cool. It's one of those things. I do love sort of a circular things that kind of end up in the correct place. It kind of looks good to me. It kind of fits with what they were trying to do with the movie and also what they were trying to say in the scene. Now, before we go on, because essentially there's not much left. There's about 15 minutes left in the movie. I've, of course, moved forward. We will play our second, a very short game where I hope you guys can participate with me. I will bring it up. Hold. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Let's play our second game of the night. It is called Cinema Deathmatch.
Round 1, fight.
Now, I have a little bit of a swiggle. Refreshed. Cinema Deathmatch is where we take two movies, pit them together, and see which one is the best one. If there's no discernible difference between the two, both of them are good or both of them are bad, we fall into our criteria, which is Saturday evening, Friday evening, out with the boys, out with the girls, out with your significant other. Two movies in a vacuum. Which one will we pop in? Yes, Paul Harley, Cinema Deathmatch. Here we go. Lost in Translation or The Jungle Book. Please cast your votes, and I will ignore them. No, just kidding. I will consider them. All right. I chose this to start off with because I was looking, again, it's so random. It gives you choices from all over the place. I stopped here because The Jungle Book is, it's a Disney movie. It's a dark Disney movie. And it has nothing to do with Lost in Translation whatsoever. Lost in Translation is a movie we kind of covered, and it's a bit long, a bit tedious, but I like where it was going. I did like where it was going. I didn't like it originally, but when we covered it, rewatching it, going deep into it, I actually love it more than I used to. And I would probably watch Lost in Translation. If it's just these two. Disney Pictures, although the animation is great, especially even back then, Paul's like, I love the songs in Jungle Book. Okay. I agree. The songs are better than the movie, I think. To me. I would go with Lost in Translation. Right. Next one. This is really easy. The Dark Crystal, Jim Henson movie. Not the best. Glengarry Glen Ross. Phenomenal movie. It's a David Mamet play that was turned into a movie written by David Mamet. Absolutely fucking great. Any day of the week. The Green Mile or Man on the Moon, both from 1999, one of the greatest years in movie history. One of the single greatest years in movie history. I would say it's up there with the best. If you look at the entire year. And these two are just great. I love Man on the Moon. And I love what Jim Carrey was able to do in the movie. I love the movie, but if it's just these two, and Green Mile is like 3.5 hours long, I would absolutely watch The Green Mile. It is absolutely fantastic. Whatever you want to say about Tom Hanks, you can say. In Green Mile, he was just fucking phenomenal. Great acting by Jim Carrey. You don't believe he's Jim Carrey for a second. In The Green Mile, you don't believe that Tom Hanks is Tom Hanks. I would go to Green Mile. 2 more. Kids or Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. I don't remember watching Kids, so I will re-roll. Fear. I have not watched Fear the Street. I did watch Hackers. This is an easy one. Hackers, all the way. Prince of Persia is not a good movie whatsoever. It's a shame that Jake Gyllenhaal is even in it. Hackers is, first of all, it's fucking a phenomenal movie. Also, if you get to know on the behind the scenes stuff on how it even got created and made, and the fact that real life hackers watched it and gave it the not 1 thumb up, 2 thumbs up on how things were actually being hacked. Great. Whew. Okay. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol or Original Fantastic Four from the movie original, we'll call it that. Ghost Protocol, again, not one of my favorite of the bunch. I think Fallout is a little bit better. I think Rogue Nation is a little bit better than this one. I would go with Ghost Protocol for sure. I just didn't like the Fantastic Four. I didn't like it. It's not that good. Not that good at all. All right. Let's do this, that. We'll do this. Put this up. All right. So Brundlefly, because he's already Brundlefly, is already working on the solution where his teeth are falling off and everything. But then he discovers about the abortion and discovers about Veronica because she came to see him. She looks at him and she feels sorry for him. And she just could not utter those words. So he follows her. He hears about the baby, right? And what he wants, he sees him getting in the car with Status. And all he wants is to, he's jealous. And now he's the one who is jealous and crazy and acting like Status. And all he wants is for them to be together. The thing about it is they go to the doctor and the doctor says, like, it's like, we don't do this like this. Not in the middle of the night, not thing. And Veronica's like, if you don't do this, I will do this myself. And of course, when the doctor leaves, Seth comes in, breaks through the window. By the way, those cubes are so fucking 80s. You don't even know. Breaks in, takes Veronica, and goes back to his laboratory because he wants, and even says it. It's like, you and me will go into the pod, and you, me, and the baby will all become one. We'll become a family. And this, to me, is super creepy because up until this point, Seth was working with the computer and he was trying to figure out how to become human again. And the solution that the computer proposes was you need a fresh human to combine with in order to do that. And it was a suggestion, and immediately thought, well, we can do this. And when he finds out she's pregnant, he's like, oh, there's a human tissue. Why don't we just join in together? And again, I don't think he even thought about it, that the fact that when he's going to move to the second pod, his fly bits are still going to be there. They're not going away. And of course, Stathis, not being the jealous boyfriend, just being the protective guy, gets a gun, goes into Seth's laboratory, or essentially, and he looks at the computer and he's like, "Oh shit, we've got a problem here, a big problem." And he, of course, confronts Brundlefly, but it doesn't quite work the way he wanted it to. And I can't really show what's happening next because, again, it's a little bit too gory for YouTube. So Seth vomits on his hand after he knocks the shotgun off. He vomits on his hand completely melts. Then he vomits on his leg. Again, I told you the stuff that they cut off is the fact that he eats his foot, but you can tell he's about to take off the foot. It doesn't really actually happen. I'm going to move past this. And of course, Veronica tells him, like, don't do this. I don't want you to do this. And he's like, no, you don't. And Brundle's like, you don't understand. This is the next phase of evolution. We need to do this. You need to help me be more human. And again, the track that they made, Help Me, was supposed to be at the very end. Of course, didn't quite mesh with the Howard Shore sort of ominous score that you have throughout this movie. And Seth is like, you'll go here, you'll go into this, I'll go into this, we come apart, and then we join in and become one. And Veronica is like, uh-oh. Because Veronica knows what's going on. Veronica knows that this entire thing, using the prototype now, using everything, will not end up well, which goes into the sequence where he literally falls apart as he sort of sheds the last vestiges of being a human and really becomes this monster of a fly man, a real Brundle fly. Puts her in this pod, goes into the other pod. As sort of Stathis pushes himself into the to the place where he takes the shotgun, fires at the cables that Veronica is in to sort of dismember or sort of sever that connection between the pod and the recipient pod. Oh, sorry. Oh. Of course, something went into my eye. I can put this on. It's a little bit gross, but there's no gore. So Brundlefly goes into the pod. He sees that Veronica's thing got messed up. There's a few more seconds for the process to actually start. So he opens up the pod, starts to go out, and then the electricity comes in and he gets taken. But the thing is, because the door was open, it also took a part of the pod with him. So he reappears on the prototype pod as a half man, half fly, half telepod. And the computer is like, yes, this is a hybrid Brundle telepod. He comes out and he wiggles his way to Veronica, and at a certain point, she has the shotgun with her, but she cannot take the shot. So he takes his hand, picks up the gun, and puts it in his head, sort of saying, please put me out of my misery. And with all the tears and all the cries and all the emotions, she pulls the trigger because she knows he's dead anyway. But making it fast will help him. And essentially, this is the last shot. As much as I can show, of course. This is the last shot where she just crumbles to the floor crying because she still loves the Seth Brundle within this mess of a fly man teleport thing that just completely died on the floor. And that is about it. Like I said, it's a love story, essentially. A love triangle of sorts. A love triangle. His son does figure out the cure in the fly too, although it does require a human victim in order for it to work. I know. It picks up one of the main bad guys in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, and like pulls him into the pod. And when they transport, he comes out of one pod completely cured, and in the other pod there's a mess of human fucking former fly, and he shoots it. I think. It's like I said, it's been a while, and the movie's not that good. It was Bartok, the guy who funded his dad's research. Yeah, ironic. Yeah. Like I said, one of the bad guys. I think he ends up working for that corporation, right? And they're like this evil kind of half militaristic corporation, right? It's brutal, but a logical ending to the fly. Yes, I completely agree. The film is a horror tragedy. I would say it's a horror movie or a thriller or whatever, a body horror movie. But at the core of it, it lays on a foundation of a solid love triangle story that goes completely haywire because of science. So it's science gone wrong and the implications of that. Like I said, the fact that you have a teleportation device or teleportation system that was there because to solve an issue that is essentially car sickness or motion sickness. And that is what drives Seth to do it. But also the teleportation itself inherently causes a philosophical question of, if you teleport something, or a human to be more exact, what is the human that comes out at the other end? Because on one side, it completely disintegrates or gets physiological destroyed and then gets rebuilt, or you get deconstructed on one end and reconstructed on the other end. But is it the same person? Is it a clone? Is it still you? What about your memories when you rebuild the brain? Is it the same brain? So does it have the same memories, or does it have fresh memories, or was one of your memories not there because it got erased because the computer doesn't know how to process all these different things? Again, very philosophical questions that have nothing to do with this movie, but there's touches of it. And the fact that you add in the fly, what becomes to the man that comes out at the other end, and that metamorphosis that happens slowly throughout a few weeks, and the fact that Seth is fully aware of it, but sometimes he lets his fly instincts come in, and sometimes he lets his human side come in or come out, is a very interesting dynamic, while he has this affair with Veronica as a human. But then when he gets transformed, he's a different, for the lack of a better word, he's a different animal. Essentially, in one sense, if Dr. Frankenstein becomes the monster himself instead of creating the monster. Correct. That's another way of looking at it. All right, cool. That kind of brings us to the very end of the show. Like I said, if you've been watching for a while or just randomly watching, I don't normally do this by myself. I don't like to do these by myself. I like to bounce ideas and I like to have different opinions. That's why essentially the show is me, my good buddy, or my feelings, and probably if we could get a guest. Again, this is only to bring in new ideas, new way of looking at it. And I love to bounce ideas off of people, and I love to bounce ideas off of you guys if I can. Normally when I have somebody here, I pay more attention to them because I want it to be a flowing conversation rather than just, stopping and doing some stuff. That is me. All right. Like I said, that kind of brings us to the end of the show. Chris Wallace, I think he was either nominated or actually did win for special effects. This was a huge hit. 15 million budget with a 60 million a take. He won the Oscar. Yeah. I thought so. I read something, but yeah. I think there was a point that Stu Kornfeld told Chris Wallace that you would probably win an Oscar at the beginning, not at the end. At the beginning when they started to work on the production, and Chris is like, yeah, shut up. And he actually did win at the end, which, it's a thing. Absolutely love rewatching this movie. Watched it twice. Again, it's a very fast watch. I forgot it's a very fast watch. And I like it. I like a good solid 90-minute movie, especially when it's a horror movie where the setup takes about an hour and then it's a very fast half hour. There are a few moments there that was like, oh, this is very 80s, very, very 80s. But the movie kind of really still holds up in terms of the story elements, the science. The computer kind of looks janky, but it serves a purpose. The fact that it very first iterations of voice, kind of voice activated computer, I forgot it was actually there, and suddenly he talks to this computer, which set up the fact that when he doesn't have teeth, the computer doesn't recognize his voice, and he actually does have to revert to actually manually punching in some stuff. Rodney Dangerfield, of all people, presented the Oscar for Best Makeup that year. That is hilarious. That is hilarious. Rodney Dangerfield presenting any award in the Oscars to anyone is a hilarious proposition. But there you have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that kind of concludes today's show. There is just one more movie to go. And like I said, we kind of built this around David Cronenberg, so we are reverting back and doing another body horror movie, an even earlier body horror movie, because we are covering a movie that I wanted to watch for the very longest time, or rewatch for the very longest time. It is James Woods, or David Cronenberg's Videodrome. James Woods and Debbie Harry from Blondie. Yes, that Debbie Harry. So that's going to be really interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Go watch Videodrome. Come back to us next week, and we will talk about it. Because, remember, guys, hope is a good thing, maybe even the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. We'll see you next week. You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.